What's your revenue? What are we at?
2 million this year.
Wow. Woohoo.
I'm home every night, maybe a networking event. If I were to get a regular full-time job, I'm sure I could make good money. I'm sure my experience would, but I might have to travel all the time. I don't want to do that. I'm able to control my future completely. New clients, old clients, however much I make, it's all really within our control. And I think that's really important to me.
Matt, what are some things that you think helped you guys get over that $1 million mark? What is the worst business advice that you have ever gotten?
Oh, I can jump on this.
She's like, I know it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of My First Million. I'm Allison Felber, VP at TMT and MSP Success, and I've got two people on with me today. Usually I'm just chatting with one person, but we get double trouble or double the fun today with Erica Martinez-Rose and Matt Rose, owners of Tech Rage. And I'm very excited to talk to the two of them today. Matt and I have done a panel together before, and he had some great insights. And Erica, always a pleasure getting to talk to you too. And you guys have, a unique story that I think will really help out, a lot of our listeners. I know the podcast is called My First Million, and it originally was like, okay, let's talk about how to get over that $1 million mark. But, in talking with different MSPs, we end up uncovering, tips and hacks and growth ideas for, people of all sizes. So I'm sure you'll get a bit of that today, from Erica and Matt. But if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our podcast listeners, kind of where you're at, your business, size, location, and maybe, each of your primary roles within the company.
Okay. I can start off. Again, Erica Martinez-Rose, CEO of Tech Rage IT. We have been in business actually 11 years now, last week. January.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. 11 years.
What is your birthday for the business? What date?
Oh, January 30th.
Okay, my birthday's the 29th. I was going to say.
So close.
Yeah,
you got 29th then.
Oh, yeah, okay. You got a little Aquarian baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've been running the business from the beginning together in different capacities, and we can talk a little bit more about that. We are currently, we were in Winter Springs for several years, and we moved over to Longwood. We have a brand new space, which was really exciting for us to kind of celebrate that anniversary as well. So we're growing up. So that's fun. I oversee service, operations, HR, finance, and the customer service side. Yeah, the fun stuff of running the business. And I was overseeing marketing, but that's now Matt, and he can talk a little more about that.
Yep. So I'm Matt Rose, Chief Experience Officer is what we came up with, and again, co-founder of Tech Rage IT. So to Erica said, she talked about a lot of where we're currently at. So about a year and a half ago, I took over marketing from Erica. I've always been doing the sales and business development. She was able to take on some other tasks. It kind of fit better we kind of going down that EOS journey, and I'm more the visionary. She's the integrator. And it's really, I think it's helped us. Having the more free time to do the sales and the marketing has started to show a lot of growth. So yeah, we're just hopefully on a growth spurt here. Although I guess Erica might disagree.
always room to grow more, right, Erica?
Yeah, it's always a conversation. More business, more things to do. So that's kind of the give and take. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, husband and wife partners, in this business, what the hell prompted you guys to start this business?
I think Matt kind of start with that one.
Yeah, I could start with it. Erica may want to jump in, but so, I guess it was now like 13, 14 years ago now. I was working as an IT director at a small venture capital government contract. They did like everything. The owner and it was at 300 employees, and I had found myself as the IT director there. It was kind of cushy. I would go to work every day, come home at 5. I was getting paid pretty well, but I had the owner of the company literally would say, I see IT as a hammer due to a job. Doesn't really matter. He didn't want to spend money. He didn't want to do this. And it just didn't feel right. We had our first kid right around then. And I like to joke that I don't think it was like a midlife crisis. It was more of just, I didn't want him growing up seeing that I just kind of punched a clock every day. So I went through a bit of a struggle, just kind of like wanting to do something more. And, I went to the point of saying we should move and whatever. And it was really like, Erica didn't like that much. And I'm glad we didn't. But then it turned out where I eventually talked to a good friend of mine who I'd known because we met in New York City. And a friend I'd met there, he actually had invited me to be a consultant with him because he had originally been a vendor who helped us install like rack servers or blade servers and things like that in like 2005 timeframe. And he had started his own consulting company. And when I kind of told him what was going on, he's like, well, I can give you some consulting hours. You'll have to fly to New York once a month. I still have family there. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. And so that kind of was the start of our company at the time. It really, I came home one day, told Eric about it, and it sounded pretty good. We talked to a few other, I talked to a woman who was in HR, and kind of everyone said you should do it. Like everyone said, given what the opportunity was. And so we did that in I guess it was 2015 now. And that started it. It started out with Erica just helping Bill for those consulting hours because it was really a 40-hour consulting job. Mm-hmm. And so at one point we were running a business together, but it wasn't the stress of this. It was really two of us. But we had this thought of, okay, well, if this one contract goes away, we're both unemployed because Erica at the time wasn't working either. So we kind of morphed it into the MSP space in the 2019 timeframe. And it's just kind of grown from there. So I don't think it's that we planned to start a business together. I think it just kind of grew into having a business together. I mean, Eric, I don't know if there's anything you would add to that.
Yeah, we pretty much started a family and started a business at the same time.
I was going to say, you're starting a business and you got a 2-year-old?
Might as well go for it. So it definitely was a balancing act. And of course, Matt being the technical person and I'm much more operations, I knew there was areas that I can help in. Mm-hmm. So I was completely different career. And so no business, no technical, anything like that. So really, we just married our skills together. I have a background in journalism, marketing. So that's kind of how we joined forces. But it was not easy because it was that risk of I wanted to stay home with my kids. That was a goal for me. That was something that was really important. But it was that scariness of if we lose a contract, I have to sell my house. I need to get a job. Like it was, and I think having that pressure forced us to move forward. Instead of being complacent because it was always that risk of what's going to happen next. We bootstrapped the organization. Matt was, building his MSP business while doing consulting. So we didn't have to, take out loans or debt or anything like that. So we've been very responsible up until today. Same thing. So we're very, very proud of that. But it's been a lot of work. I can tell you being a husband-wife team, it's not easy because it's all day, every day. From the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed and you're still thinking about work. And the disagreements they'll last all day.
There's no I'll see you when I get home.
No, you don't take that hat off. It's I'm still upset with you about that decision you made and it just will continue going. So I can tell you that our kids understand a lot of business terminologies. They're very savvy and in business, finances. They've heard it all at the dinner table. So they're getting a lot of life lessons there.
Yeah. Do you guys try and kind of take a break hey, no shop talk? Or do you feel having those conversations over a meal or at home or with your kids brings kind of a different perspective and inspiration and idea? Like, how do you guys handle that?
I think we know that we'd like to take a break. I'm probably the one at fault most of the time for like, okay, we're home or with dinner or it's before school and whatever, like we're just having coffee. And I just, sometimes I'm excitable. I kind of get, told sometimes like, all right, it's, 6:40 in the morning. The kids aren't awake, whatever. So I think we know we should. It's difficult. And I think sometimes between the fact that we're both running a growing business and between the fact that we've kind of separated our, we really do have separate departments, even in a small business. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes the only time we get to update each other is lunches or dinner. We just had lunch together here at the house and there was just a couple of things I hadn't heard about. And so I asked it over lunch because I don't know when we would have heard it otherwise. So sometimes it's out of necessity. Sometimes I'm way too eager and that probably bites me. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Matt just got back from PC last week. And Sunday at 8 in the morning, he's telling me about all these things. And I'm like, I am not caffeinated. I haven't, I've been home since Wednesday with the kids. Not the right time and place to start talking to me about this.
I don't remember who it was, but they told me they were an employee of, an IT company. And they were like, we always hate it, when the CEO goes to Producers Club because we know he's going to come back with all these things he wants to do. And like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, he's an excited puppy sometimes, and I'm just like not having it right now.
Okay, so the beginning then, started off consulting, then realized, okay, we need to do this MSP thing. From the get-go, were you managed services, or did you start IT and then make a shift into managed services?
So again, I would say we were able to make the jump right into managed services because again, the consulting we were doing was practically a full-time job, even though it was a 1099 where I was hourly, but I was able to bill the same amount every month. And that started to come to an end. We knew it was coming to an end. And so I think just from people I know, I'd heard about, there's this managed services thing. So our first client, at the time we had heard, or I had read different things, whether it's online from from Robin Robbins, from Gary Pica, stuff like that about how much you should charge. And I remember going into our first client saying like, all right, it was like a 10-user company. Like it's going to be $1,500 a month. And I'm like terrified. And they're like, all right, cool. We'll sign up. And I'm like, okay. Like,
I meant 2000.
Yeah, I know. I did feel that way, but it was just, so we were fortunate because, like Erica's right. We did bootstrap it, but we had this unique where I had this consulting that I was still making good money. I still was able to find time. I was working from home. So like if I needed to go jump to a different client, I could do it kind of without knowing. And when we were able to start researching this, we already had seen what the market was. So I didn't have to do break fix. We were fortunate enough to never charge, $25 a computer or something like that, where we were super undercharged. So jump right into managed services. Now I didn't know anything about it back then, and I've learned a ton since then, but like, I feel like we were really fortunate to not have, to do well based upon the documented mistakes of others, if you will.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So what were some of the most challenging or difficult parts, about the first few years? I know you mentioned, the pressure of, okay, we have to do this, otherwise we're selling the house, but that, that's a huge amount of pressure and anxiety. Like what else was really difficult about those beginning years?
I think for me, I was very big on how do we differentiate ourselves in the market. At this point, we hadn't learned about, your TCP or your ideal clients and your avatars. Like I knew that from a marketing standpoint, but being in IT, I was like, how do we differentiate ourselves? Like there's so many of them and we're the youngest one in the market. Everyone had 15, 20 years over us. Mm-hmm. So, here we are, how do we do this? And Matt didn't mention that when he started his consulting company, our company name was super long, super boring. It was Intersection Technology Solutions. So it's a mouthful. And I'm like, this is not going to fly. So, from my marketing standpoint, I was like, we need to do something that stands out, unique, bold. And that's where the Tech Rage came from, because it defines me. Like, I'm a hothead when technology doesn't work. And Matt has been my IT guy since we were dating. Like, I would call him and say, my company is doing this. I can't fix it. Like, the computer's not, he would help me, not my own IT company. So he's been dealing with me forever. I say that all the employees should come through me to kind of get a good grasp of dealing with like the hardest client they'll ever do, pretty much. So, but yeah, that's where Tech Rage IT was born. And we took a risk. Because we're not going to be for everyone. We might turn people off with our name, but for the most part, it's a good conversation starter. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I knew we hit it out of the park when we came up with that. And it really is. It gets the chuckle. We'll have clients calling us and saying, I have Tech Rage, help me today. So everybody plays to it. So I think it's fun. So that helped us really stand out in the market. And I think that was kind of like that stepping stone we needed. And so I think that would be probably the hardest thing, was how do we stand out? Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What were some of the most difficult things about the first few years?
I think Erica's right, standing out, but I think it also was learning how, while we were small, I was the tech, I was the salesperson. Again, I was everything except at the time marketing and the finance and whatnot behind there. And, it's been a struggle for me to not be seen as the best technical asset. And we have some great employees now, but I still think to some stances, I can still do the tech as good, but I have to not do it. I have to, I might do something in 15 minutes. They'll take 20 minutes. And I think it's been a struggle for me as we've grown to not be that. And also for my clients to not come to me. And we have some clients that have been with us since we were small. We have some that have been with us even in the past 3 to 4 years where we've had pretty significant growth. And that was really hard. Clients used to know my cell phone number, right? And not just from like a sales standpoint kind of thing. Like, they would call it or text it like, I need help. And I think that was a struggle. I think it still kind of is. Sometimes I just want to jump in. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And I think that'll be ongoing. But that was very, very difficult for me. Or the fact that I'm doing the technical, but then I wanted to go to a networking event or I wanted to do something for sales. How do you choose from the money you're already getting versus the new money? With literally just me. So I think those were some of the struggles I've really had, and some I still struggle with today.
What are some things that I guess first of all, when did you guys cross over that $1 million revenue mark? And what were, a couple things that really helped you cross over that hurdle?
So we hit it 2021. Prior to that, we were having pretty much 100% growth. I mean, it was, when you're smaller, it's easier to duplicate your revenue. Once you hit that $1 million, it's still significant growth, but just doesn't feel that way. It doesn't look it. I mean, we've been exceeding, industry standards for a long time. But yeah, around 2021. So a lot of it did help with COVID, if you will, where that kind of helped us with that growth. But after that, no, then it was just more of pricing correctly, and going from there. But yeah, I mean, it took a while to get there, 6 years.
Yeah. So adjusting pricing, raising rates, getting, some project work from COVID. Matt, what are some things that you think helped you guys get over that $1 million mark?
I think we were also, when we did get a client, we were fortunate they were pretty sticky. And we also, I don't know if it's almost like we have a knack for choosing. At the time, not like we were really too choosy, but we always did also have we pretty much from the beginning wanted to get clients of 10 employees or more. So I think part of that helped. We weren't taking on 1 and 2 person clients that were paying us only a little bit. But we also were very fortunate, like Eric said, with COVID. We had one client that they were about 30 employees, give or take, before COVID. And fast forward to the end of 2021, part of their company got acquired, and they were upwards of 160 total employees.
Wow.
And we charge per user. So that was that was a nice thing, but it also brought on new challenges of how do you we onboarded 130 employees with a very small team. So, but I think part of it was choosing the right clientele. You know, even if we didn't have that, you know, the ideal client profile yet, we knew we want them to be at least 10 employees. And I think doing that set us up for larger deals from the beginning and probably less headache, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your first hire, you know, outside of hiring each other, you know, who was your first hire?
So that's interesting because we were a home-based business when we started. So we worked from home before it was cool, but that posed a huge challenge for hiring. Because back then it looked pretty sketchy to say you're a home-based business, we're looking for employees, remote working wasn't really a thing. So it did pose a challenge. So we became clients of an incubator here locally in Orlando. So really they helped us with some coaching and office space as well, because it was just so cost prohibitive to find space. So that allowed us the opportunity to get an employee. But the first hire, we had no idea what we were doing. We had no employee handbook, nothing. But fresh out of college, and we still followed that hiring methodology of very green employees, and mentoring them, coaching them, and kind of being what they call now just a training program. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we've been doing from the beginning. You'll have more turnover because, you know, they're going to learn everything they can and they're going to move on. But for the most part, we like being able to teach them the Tech Rage IT way. And it's worked for us.
Okay. So it's worth hiring someone green, knowing there's going to be, hey, you trained us up and now we're ready to go on to bigger, better things. Have you ever hired someone who's a little bit more seasoned?
Yes, we have. In the beginning, we thought it was very exciting to get interest from other MSP employees. But that came with its whole set of issues, because it's breaking bad habits. It was more challenging for us to do that. Mm-hmm. So we just resorted back to hiring entry level, and it's not easy. It is a lot of work, a lot of upfront investment. But once it clicks, and you've got it. So I feel like that level 2, level 3 has always been more of a challenge for us to find that right person, because they're coming in with their own set of, this is the way I do it. And to kind of break that, it just hasn't worked for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At our size right now, maybe in the future, but right now, we follow service leadership. So we understand all those metrics. So we grow at the right rate, and we'll see when that becomes a need to hire those 2 and 3s, but not right now.
Yeah. Hiring is always, something that has been coming up for a couple years now as a really difficult thing that MSPs deal with, finding, hiring, training, and retaining talent. Where are you finding some of these, more green, newbies to come join a Tech Rage?
So we're fortunate that here in Orlando, we have a lot of schools nearby. I was actually just looking at, and we've gone ebb and flows through the economy, through the climate. We've had where we've gotten 0 applicants, and it's been outrageous for salary compensations. I was just looking today, and we've had 40 applicants in the last 5 days for a level 1 job. And that's the last 4 or 5 days. Wow. So we've seen it all. So going through all of that it's a lot of work to go through all of those applications. But again, being here in Orlando, we have a lot of technical schools, 4-year colleges, and they all come with their, it's interesting because we've had turnover also because they'll start seeing what other industries are offering. And we're competing with the government contractors, with Disney, with all of these large hospitals. And as a small business, we just can't match those compensations. So that we've gotten to the point that we just expect the turnover. And now we're better prepared, because before we weren't. It was catching our tail every time we had turnover, and we're like, oh no, we're not ready. And now we're just really proactively looking, always hiring mentality.
Okay.
And one thing that I would say, I'm not as involved in the technical interviews anymore, but when I used to talk to people, I would actually tell them, like, this is going to be a job where you're going to do 500 different things one time a day, and you're going to get a ton of experience. And I would say, kind of, if you compare us to a Disney, you'll do one thing 500 times a day. You'll make really good money. You'll go home every day. Cool. Go home at 5. And I've done it, right? Like, and we actually had an employee who left us a year and a half ago. Great guy. And I actually ran into him a couple months later, and he had went to an internal IT, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of boring. I'm like, yeah, isn't that what I think I told you that, which I have no ill will towards that. Like, we kind of, Paul Sissel and service leadership kind of say that you're like, kind of like, they're going to the major leagues, right? Like and I'm totally okay admitting that. Like, I will never pay, I can't. But I'm okay also thinking that we've prepared somebody to go work at a Disney and be really successful. And that's fine by me. So it's interesting to see it when it happens.
Okay. So I'll ask this to each of you, but Matt, I'll start with you. What was a mistake or a setback that has ended up really teaching you the most?
Ooh, which one? I actually think so. And I think it's an interesting one, because years ago, actually, when we were just getting started, we actually came to a point with the consulting that we knew the contract was coming to an end. And that goes back to where Erica said, we knew we had so many months left, or else we'd be getting jobs or selling the house. And around that time, I closed a couple deals. And one of them was a mammoth deal. And I kind of let the CEO, was a great guy, but he kind of was like, we're going to do this. Cool. And I said, we're going to charge you this much per month. I underestimated the amount of work it was going to be to basically take on an IT department that currently had 2 employees. They were about 45 minutes to an hour away from our office. And, but it sounded great. Money was green. And, so then it was a struggle. We basically were buried doing those tech things. I mean, I think we did a good enough job for them, probably not up to my standards. Then COVID hit. And then it was kind of like, hey, we need to lower our bill. What could I do? Sure, we'll lower your bill. And so, like, I learned a lot about, I learned about those whale clients. And I'm not saying we don't have a few clients still, or have had some that are more than they should be, but we try to protect them better. We try to plan for them better. And just make sure that we're going to have a mix of them, and they're great to have, but they cannot be, I think at one point this was like 60-70% of our revenue.
Gotcha.
And we basically lost, then we lost 50% of it. And then a year or so later, it was fully gone because they made a leadership change. So, like, it taught a lot about, it taught a lot about us being smart with our finances too, because I used to go to a IT Nation or something, and I would just want to buy every tool. And sometimes we would, because Erica would sometimes let me. Now she doesn't let me anymore. But it also just, when we have an opportunity that's well above kind of our average client size now, I really have to think about it, and I really have to do a much better job of seeing what it looks like. Or even from a standpoint of projects, I probably did a ton of work and projects for that company for nothing. And now we look at that and do better. So I would think that's
yourself.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest one. It could have hurt us bad, probably did in the meantime, but I think it's taught me a ton as I go forward every day.
Yeah. What about you, Erica? A mistake or setback that ended up teaching you the most?
Yep. So, being that I oversee the HR function, that's what it's related to. We, in the last 11 years that we've been in business, we've had to turn over our staff twice. So we went from having full staff to Matt and myself. And it was related to a lot of things, from employees leaving for other opportunities, having to terminate for other things. And I think the lesson learned is it's okay to start over, especially when you hit different milestones. That's been something we've learned, that what worked when you were 500,000 doesn't work when you're a million or 15, 1.5. And that's been something that we've learned the hard way of. You have to terminate sooner than later, because it doesn't help the operations to have someone who's not holding their weight or being toxic or just not following, procedures that you've worked so hard to implement for the success of the business. So we've really learned a lot. But yeah, it got to the point that a few years ago, it was Matt, myself, and an intern, and we were supporting the $1 million+ in revenue.
Wow.
And we didn't have any we didn't have any clients leave. They were also going through their own staffing issues, especially around that COVID time where it was just hard to get anyone. So they understood. And I think that was the biggest thing, was being transparent. But recently, again, we had, some turnover again. And it gets to the point that you already know what to do. It's not easy, but you'll survive. And I've told Matt, I trust him. And if we have to do it again, we'll do it again. But, hopefully not. Hopefully we've learned enough. Better hiring processes, better training, setting expectations. So, you learn those things. But in the beginning, it was just sure, you're late. Okay. Again. Okay. So you can't tolerate that type of behavior. So I think that was the biggest lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned a couple different things, service leadership. I think you mentioned Robin a little bit too. So not necessarily, people, but has there been, a book or a podcast or a tool or a group that you really recommend other MSPs read, listen to, join, whatever it may be?
I have been listening to Robin for many, many years, especially when we were starting the business. So for me, it's one of those, I absorb as much as I can. Mm-hmm. So being a PC member, I listen to all of that content. But even all of the YouTube videos, there's just so many resources out there, right? There's no excuse to not learn. So I pick something and I obsess over it. And that's kind of me, is as much as I possibly, I'll be walking the dog, listening to a podcast, or listening to Robin's YouTube, whatever it was that day. But that's what I do. I just become obsessed over it. So that's me.
Yeah. And I'm probably a little bit different on that. There's books and different things I've listened to. And again, our accountability group at PC, Ready to Rumble, has been great. But I think one thing I learned, it was right around when we went to boot camp for the first time, 2023, I guess. We'd always kind of heard about Robin, and we had one of those offers. It was show us you have a hotel, we'll give you a free ticket. And we're like, oh, we'll go to Nashville. Why not? Fell in love with Nashville. That was cool. But up until then, Erica would listen to things like that, but I was kind of stuck with this, call it almost a clique in the IT industry that said, you should use these products, talk to these people, don't do this. And I actually would say that, well, there's books and everything. You also need to make sure the communities you're involved in are kind of open, because I didn't open my eyes to the TMT world, would listen to the things on Reddit or whatever, and I went to that. I went to boot camp and I actually talked to people and found out there's plenty of people who weren't having success or were churning, whatever. There's people doing amazing things. And it made me realize not just to blindly follow TMT, but also now I want to, if I talk to somebody and they're just bad mouthing a vendor or bad mouthing somebody because they just, if they don't have an experience, I'm like, well, you don't really know what's going on. Yeah. And so it's kind of make your own mistakes, get out into different communities. And even in our peer group, I prefer that our peer group, they're not all using the same tech stack. They're not all going to bash one or the other. But I would say that held me back too. I was listening to one group of people, and if I had been more open earlier, who knows? Maybe I had more success early on.
Yeah. So what you're telling people is, get out there, talk to more people, get different opinions, try different things, and you'll find something that fits you for growth. There's a lot of different groups out there, but yeah, try them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so final question here is a fun one that I don't always have the time to ask, but it's a fun one to ask. And sometimes people have to think for a minute, but what is the worst business advice that you have ever gotten?
Oh, I can jump on this one.
She's like, I know it.
Yeah, so I think what we've learned is that being business owners and entrepreneurs, you can't really relate to regular people. Mm-hmm. I think it's very hard. People don't understand why you work so hard or what you're doing, especially my parents. I'm Hispanic. So I have Hispanic parents, and they for sure don't understand what we do, what Matt does. It doesn't matter. We can't explain it to them. They just don't understand. And I went from being a stay-at-home mom to working more and more in the business. And when I would tell my mom we would get a new client, she's like, oh, great. So does that mean you're going to stay home and cook more and be home more often because now you can have someone do your job? So that was probably the worst advice ever to be given. And I said, no, that means I can have someone cook for me.
I would say that's what it means.
As opposed to me being home with my children that I don't want to do anymore. But no, thank you. So I think that the point of the story is that, lean on your business owner friends. They're going to understand you more. Because regular friends are just like, I don't understand what you do. Why you work so hard? Yeah.
I don't understand why you work so hard, why you're working weekends, why you're not coming to this, why you're not doing that. Yeah.
For me, I think the one thing I'll say is, like, I remember hearing whether it was like tax experts or whatever back in the day, and they would kind of tell you like, oh, in the first few years of your business, you can write off losses and stuff like that, and seemingly be telling you to just basically go in debt, and I may not even mention this to Erica that I heard it because it was such crazy advice to me, but I think the idea of, and I'm not saying against those like buy back your time type books where I know those are different, but like the idea of like being in debt to maybe try to get ahead or gamble, right? There's no sure thing or else everyone would do it. Or like just hire, even with hiring, it's hard enough to just hire 5 people when you need 1 or 2. Not because you're hoping, the whole thing of like hire 2 salespeople, one's going to fail. That's fine. But if you're just like, oh, we'll hire 5 people so I don't do anything, is just that's something I've heard people doing that, and like therefore having no profit, taking no salary for themselves. It's a hard enough job. We need to, the amount of work we're going to do, we need to take home a fair wage for what we're doing. And I think that I've heard enough people over the years being like, oh, you could write all that off. Well, yeah, no.
You're like, no, not doing it that way. Not doing it that way. I know I said that was my last question, but kind of something that you said, Erica, gave me another question that I was really curious about. There's pressure, I think, on families, in general. I think more so traditionally women, to, stay at home and, take care of the kids. And, other people don't always understand why you work so hard. Both genders, why are you working so hard? Why are you spending all your time doing this? What is your why? What is the why for each of you?
It's a ongoing question for me. I think Matt and I definitely, although we're co-founders, co-owners, partners, and we're both working towards the same goal, I think we have separate goals as well. For me, I have a lot of invested in this company, because even if I were to exit one way or another, it still affects me, right? Because it's still my husband, dealing with this business. But my goal is I'm working hard enough to get the company to a point where I can do what I want to do afterwards. So that's what I have to keep reminding myself of. I'll be able to reap those benefits once I get to a certain point. That I know that the company's in a good place that I can then do what I want to do in the future. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What's your why?
Yeah. I mean, So I think that Erica's right. We definitely have some different thoughts of like the current. I've always enjoyed like it. Like again, like Erica had kind of mentioned that I was her IT guy. I was actually her IT guy when we met too. She worked at the company I did. So literally, I helped her get set up at her computer the first day we met. So, but it's like I actually really enjoy, and that's part of why I struggle with the whole not doing the technical. I do enjoy helping people. I enjoy them getting their day get. So I like seeing the company grow and actually have, you know, raving fans type thing. And so I think I enjoy doing that. It's still fun to me to come to work every day when our current clients are hopefully happy, or even if they have a frustrating day, that they still kind of can thank us for our patience, whatever, and that I see growth. At the end of the day, though, the real why is that, you know, we do have 2 growing kids. I'm very proud of the life we've been able to give to them. Compared to, I think both of us, probably more me than Erica, but like my childhood was fine, but I was, you know, my parents didn't have the money to do a vacation all the time and all that. And so we did much better than many, but like, I like that and we tell our kids all the time, you're very fortunate, right? Like when they're acting up, we're like, you're very fortunate. A lot of kids don't have this. So I'd stop complaining. But I enjoy that we're able to do that. And I don't know, and be around, you know, I travel for PC or something, but I'm home every night, you know, maybe a networking event. If I were to get a regular full-time job, I'm sure I could make good money. I'm sure my experience would, but I might have to travel all the time. I'd be out, and I don't want to do that. I'm able to control my future completely, you know, new clients, old clients, however much I make, it's all really within our control. And I think that's really important to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fun that you guys have different whys. You know, everybody, you know, kind of has to have their own, and, you know, you should have different whys, and, you know, encourages you guys to keep on going. And you guys have done an incredible job. I don't even think we talked about at the beginning. What's your revenue? What are we at?
We are on track for 2 million this year.
Wow. Woohoo. See, now we got to do another, not my first million, my second million. Have you guys be our first guest.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I mean, I quit every other day, maybe. So it is, you know, it's a lot of work. People don't see the exterior of it, right? Because Matt and I don't complain. If we complain to each other or to our, you know, our colleagues, but, you know, for our employees, we have to show up for them every day, even though when it sucks, especially when it sucks, it's so hard. But we push through it, and, you know, we don't want to give any type of vibe that it's been easy. It hasn't. It's been so much tears and like blood, sweat, all of it. So it's nice to have these conversations and reflect on it, but it's hard for sure. So I want people to realize that it's, even at our size, it's still hard. Yeah.
But worth it because you're working towards those whys.
Yeah.
Well, Erica and Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you guys being on here and, you know, talking through your first million in those early days and, you know, lessons learned and all of that. I appreciate you guys being on here and giving us some time. And I know that our listeners will love gleaning some tips from you guys too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. It's been fun for sure.
All right. Bye-bye.